なんだ?
離れろルフィ!
何が起こってんだよ
Onepiece Odyssey released on the Nintendo Switch last week, and it was my holiday game. I played it in handheld predominantly while sat by the pool, and it really reminded me why I love the Nintendo Switch so much. Now, if you don't know who the Straw Hat Pirates are, or Monkey D. Luffy, well, hopefully this review is going to tell you whether or not it's even worth you considering picking this one up. If you're a fan of the series, then this will definitely answer the same question. So, are there 1,000 reasons to set sail on this sunny Odyssey, or is it about to get decked? Well, my name is Mark Walker. Welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. The Straw Hat Pirates, led by Luffy, find themselves shipwrecked on an island called Wofford. They seem to know and have heard about it, with some seeming mystery centered around it. Shortly after this, they basically have all of their powers nicked by some slightly upset woman who turns all of their abilities into cubes and scatters them about the island because most of the pirates that visit aren't very nice people. When she discovers that actually these lot seem alright, she agrees to help them get their powers back, and off you go looking for little cubes. The island itself reminded me a little of Ys 8, and I was very excited to have an original story set here. That excitement did wane a little when the next element kicked in. Basically, Onepiece Odyssey involves you going back into your old memories, because of course the only way to get your powers back is to revisit the memories where you first gained them. But what that means is going back in time to places and story arcs that we already know the conclusions to, or at least you might do if you know the series. If you don't know the series, it's also still slightly problematic because the characters explain exactly what happens. They'll be like, oh yeah, that's the place where we beat Crocodile. Let's go and beat Crocodile. So in that regard, it's a bit of a lose on both accounts. Now, what they do to try and keep things interesting for everyone is put in the little caveat that memories are fickle things, and sometimes remembering things isn't as easy as it once was, and thus, when you re-experience those, they may alter in many different ways. And yep, they definitely do. Oh, and of course, if you die in the Matrix, then Memoria, then you die in real life. Thankfully, the cast are so strong that they carry this experience along. The interactions between them are enjoyable whether you're a fan or not, but certainly there's a ton of fan service in here as well. Particular moments will see you revisiting characters who may or may not have perished in the mainline story, and those can be poignant moments if you have a clue who they are. Regardless of if you get all the references, you do still understand why you're doing what you are, and that's going to be clear to anyone playing. Gameplay is quite interesting. You've got a mixture of different elements. It actually feels quite a bit like Dragon Quest, certainly the newer games in terms of its combat. You can interact with enemies that you see out on the field. Approaching them from behind will gain you a surprise attack, and it's turn-based combat, but not with your traditional turn order. You can tell when a player's going to attack you because this little arrow is all flashy and stuff, but also there are a series of small interconnected battles going on at the same time. This is a nice idea. It means that you have to decide whether you use close range or distant attacks to help your fellows who are in combat. There's another system as well at play called the bonus system, and I really like this idea. It basically gives you an extra bonus objective almost every time you enter combat. Now, for some, these are going to be a little bit too easy. It might be kill the enemy that's about to knock your friend out, but I actually like that, and what it does is it gives you a massive chunk of experience if you're able to complete it. So much so that you will not have to grind in Onepiece Odyssey. For some that might be upsetting, and I think the developer should have added in a more difficult option for those people, but for me, honestly, it was a breath of fresh air. Add into that, the combat and the moves themselves stripped straight from the anime are a delight to experience. And then you unlock synergistic moves between your party so that you just get more and more powerful. Now, with that in mind, if you're looking for a challenging gameplay experience, Onepiece Odyssey, it's not really that. This is an RPG or JRPG that anyone could pick up and play, and even on the harder battles, you generally won't be struggling too much. Now, aside from the slightly interesting system of having your party spread out around the battle, both your own party as well as the enemies will be assigned either power, technical or speed in terms of their class. In the corner you can see exactly what beats what, with inevitable comparisons to rock, paper, scissors, but you can see whether they're holding rock, paper or scissors. You can switch out any of your units, whether they're your active party or those in reserve, and this won't actually cost you a move, which I also thought was quite generous. It means that even if you're low on healing items, you can generally just swap out a party member. It's unlikely that all of them are going to be flattened. There's the usual gamut of different status ailments that you can afflict on the enemy and have afflicted to your own party, and there's even an ulterior universe where you'll increase the amount of bond between your characters by specifically trying to help each other during combat. Now the world exploration is also quite decent. While one of the areas, the sand one, which you'll see in the majority of this footage because it was about 15 hours long, slightly outstays its welcome, you also experience the island that I spoke about and around 3 others. To keep it fresh, you can switch between any of your party members and use their skills. For example, everyone's favourite chef is able to find ingredients, and Luffy of course can use his arms to reach and pull you into high places and quickly traverse ledges. Each of them is used at different times throughout the game, and that was a nice change of pace. Aside from standard issue side quests, there are also bounty boards where you can seek out and capture bounties for a nice bit of buns. While I can certainly see the argument being made for more difficult gameplay, it wasn't a huge issue for myself, but the storyline, it didn't grip me overly. If you're just after a classic style JRPG though, that executes everything well and has a real sense of heart, driven by that excellent cast of characters, then you're going to enjoy this, whether you've watched One Piece or not. Story and gameplay combined, score 16 out of 20. The controls are generally okay, you can change the XY axis, but I did find the speed of camera, even at its max, was too slow. This is so often the case in RPGs, so this certainly isn't unique to One Piece Odyssey. Controls score 16 out of 20. Odyssey is quite a lovely looking game. The Nintendo Switch version holds up surprisingly well, running at 30 frames per second almost all of the time. It's not a stuttery experience, frame pacing is solid, however you will see some degradation of visuals when there's a lot on screen, and it dynamically scales the resolution to try and keep everything running well. It never looks bad and it's quite vibrant. Certainly the comparison I made at the start to Dragon Quest XI's is apt in the overall feel of One Piece Odyssey. They certainly took inspiration there. The characters are all on point, and the same goes for handheld mode. It's actually really nice to play in handheld, and the load times, although a little longer in some places, things like entering and exiting battles, that's absolutely fine, and honestly that's the most important aspect here. Sound and audio, well, the soundtrack is fantastic. Has a really nice soundtrack that changes from area to area, but this doesn't have English voice acting, which might be an issue for some, not for me at all. It really made no odds. This isn't a Musu where you can't read the text that's on the screen, there's plenty of time, and the voice actors in their native tongue, they seem to do a very good job. Visuals and performance combined, that scores 17 out of 20, while sound and audio scores 16 out of 20. So what are you getting for your money then? Well, the game will take around 40 hours to finish. This is the deluxe edition, so you get in the base game, you're getting an additional scenario, One Piece Odyssey Reunion of Memories, and a few outfits. You can change the outfits at any time from the campsites. While it's a decent Switch port and a fun JRPG, there are better ones on Switch for cheaper, but it's certainly one to add to your wish list and wait for a sale in my opinion. That price though is just a little bit too high, particularly when it's been out for a year on other platforms. Now there is a physical available of this one, so perhaps you'll be able to find it a little bit cheaper. Value scores 14 out of 20. One Piece Pirate Odyssey is a fun JRPG that perhaps doesn't do enough to really differentiate itself and make it excel, certainly on a platform that has some of the best RPGs that have ever been made. Still, it's good, and it scores a SwitchUp score of 79%. Thanks to our Patreons, to the publisher for the review copy. Let us know in the comments what you think of this one, and as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!